Recently, I had a chance to play the open beta for City of the Wolves, and this game is gorgeous. I loved every minute of it for the 30 that I actually spent playing. First off, as a product, the beta made it feel dated. It came with a sluggish UI straight out of 2008 and online matchmaking that is subpar at best. There were long queue times when there was no shortage of players, where instead of being paired with someone in your region, it would pair you with someone across an ocean. I was getting matches with people in Europe before people in my own country. And when the primary way people interact with your product is by going online to play live games against other people, struggling to deliver that experience means it is a weak product. It is not delivering on what people expect. Fatal Fury City of the Wolves seems like a great game, but from the first open beta it feels like every possible peripheral impedes on what is otherwise a great game. This is not a new issue. The past 4 months I've fallen in love with King of Fighters 15, to the point where it has become my favorite fighting game of all time. I was left wondering why I hadn't been as addicted to this franchise sooner, and part of that has to do with KOF 15's own launch. 15, it released with terrible matchmaking and wouldn't resolve the issue for a full year, but by that time it had already lost all of its momentum, and Street Fighter 6 released the summer before it fixed the issue, and it was offering an online experience that was light years better than KOF 15 at the time. Now, in all fairness, Street Fighter 5 got flagged for its own netcode issues.
I don't like the lag, so I'm not going to force myself to play. I love the game.
Yeah.
The game is amazing, but the online is just not good, and it just tilts me to, I'm sure y'all know I'm seeing it.
But the fact that it wasn't until 2020 for the developers to start investing more in the online experience is ridiculous compared to every other genre out there. This genre is rich with history. It's got titles outliving the arcades people first played them in, and with it being person versus person, there's a lot of cool history surrounding the players in our community which I love hearing about. We have players in Capcom Cup right now playing Ryu because their dad played Ryu. The genre is not just old, however, it is dated. It has fallen behind its peers, and that is the biggest issue the fighting game genre faces today. First and most obvious is the price to entry. A $60 game plus season pass for another $30 each year? More if you were a Tekken 8 player, may your wallet rest in peace. When your peers are offering online player versus player experiences for free with a comparable if not greater production value, it's becoming harder to justify the high upfront costs when people are not even sure they're going to like the game in the first place. The second part of the issue is that over the past 30 years of innovation around character design, system mechanics, and pioneering subgenres in the space, developers rarely address people with this tentative interest in these games. Some people don't want to compete, or at least they want to play games in a non-competitive environment to get more accustomed before hopping into PvP. There is so much room for reimagining what these games can be. Street Fighter 6's World Tour mode, Grand Blue Versus had an entire campaign with an option to do co-op with friends, and Strive released with extensive tutorials that you could tailor to your specific character. Even with all of these features, fighting games are still infamous. People think about combos and how hard these games are when that is not true. Back when you had to physically travel to other arcades to see what other players were doing, DIY matchmaking where the queue time was a plane ride, on top of stricter input handling of the games of the time, yeah, maybe those things had something to do with this existing stigma around the genre today. The FGC is larger than ever, unified online instead of isolated pockets around the globe, so it is so much easier to share information and for people to create resources that help other players. The fighting game genre exists on a spectrum, and much of its advancements have been made for making one end of that spectrum incredibly rich, fun to explore, and even more fun to play with friends. The non-fighting games I spent a lot of my time playing growing up began to shift more and more towards traditional fighting games as my appetite for competition in a one-on-one environment grew. I started with PvP in Dark Souls 3, I would go to Irithyll and join fight clubs, and sticking with that medieval theme, but I wanted a bit more focus on PvP, I spent 4 years playing For Honor, and I now hate that game in only ways someone with hundreds of hours can. Later on, I tried Mordhau, featuring large team fights while also wanting to preserve the competitive integrity of a 1v1, and Absolver shifted away from a medieval theme for me, but offered a blend of an action RPG and a fighting game. Its only weakness was not being longer. I wish the game had more narrative for me to sink my teeth into and play and explore. I love the world of Absolver. And I think the idea, and part of the reason why it was so short, is that you play through the story and then transition to PvP, but I think Absolver is a great example of how the genre can branch out. I'm looking forward to see where the genre goes, and even if not all the games that come out are for me, I think Guile Winquote puts it best.